تلویزیون بهار تلویزیون مردمی که شامل برنامه‌های هنری، فرهنگی، اجتماعی، سیاسی، ورزشی و موضوعات داغ روز می باشد. پس تلویزیون بهار را دنبال کنید.
بهار تلویزیون دیوالی او پیوستون ریښتینی غږ.
چرا امریکاییان افغان تبار برای دونالد ترامپ باید ووت یا رای بدن؟
Well, for a couple reasons. If you take a look at the Afghan Americans that are here in the United States.
در مورد از اینکه آقای ترامپ هفته پیش به ویروس کرونا مبتلا شدن و حالا فعلا ظاهرا خوب شدن، اما 14 روز ضرورت دارن که به قرنطینه باشن و اما دوره نقاهت خود تیر کنند. طالبان در دوحه هنوز به نتیجه نرسیدن. جواب آقای ترامپ برای مردم افغانستان چی خواهد بود با توجه به گذشته بسیار تاریک طالبان که هنوز هم در دوحه قطر آشتی نمیکنن و هیچ به موافقه نرسیدن؟ امیال مذاکرات صلح در دوحه قطر جریان داره یکی؟
I mean, Afghanistan has been fighting since 1979. I mean, when will the fighting end? When will there be a generation that grows up without war in Afghanistan?
مردم افغانستان مخصوصا زنهای افغانستان بسیار خاطرات تلخ داره. به نظر شما جواب آقای ترامپ برای این تعداد مردمی که طالبان خوش نداره نظر به کارکردهای گذشتهشون چی است؟ شما اگه سر خود فوکس کنین که مشکلات را دیدین، حالا اگر یا اینا در راستن میگه لحظه دیدار نزدیک است، باز میلرزه دلم دستم.
خانم ها را غرض نگیره.
چه نظر دارین برای از اینکه شما وجودتان از دست دادین؟ زن است که تاریخ جهان میسازد، شهکار شگفت جاودان میسازد، با دانش خود رود به سوی افلاک، دنیای دیگر به کاروان میسازد. که صدای خشمالود سر از مجده جمال زاده است که یکی از نویسنده‌های بسیار معروف کشور کانادا این کتاب نوشته کرده و در دل از این کتاب بسیار گپا قصه هایی است که از زنهای افغانستان است. ای نام تو بهترین سرآغاز، به نام تو نامکی کنم باز. سلام بیننده عزیز، افغانای عزیز، امیدوار هستم که خوب باشین و اساسی ترین لحظات سرنوشت ساز افغانستان به خوبی و خوشی سپری کنین. من یقین دارم که هر کدام نگرانی دارن از افغانستان، چرا تغییرات بسیار فاحش در افغانستان در حال آمدن است. مذاکرات صلح با طالبان در دوحه قطر موضوع بسیار اساس است. این که موضع‌گیری ایالات متحده آمریکا در قبال این تحول چی است؟ با 3 کارشناس، محمد صابر ناصری، شما میشناسین آقای ناصری را که در افغانستان 50 هایش از دست داده توسط می گروپی که حالا آقای ترامپ میخواد با اینا صلح کنه. همچنان آقای جری که اینا رئیس کمپاین انتخاباتی امریکای لاتین در ایالات متحده آمریکا هستند، یقینا در کمپاین انتخاباتی دونالد ترامپ رئیس جمهور ایالات متحده آمریکا کار میکنن. و آقای اونز مثل من خبرنگار مستقل است، در افغانستان بودن، تجارب کافی دارند. قهرمان افغانستان جناب صابر را که شما میشناسین، ما شما در بخش‌های مختلف دیدیم جناب را که با این مقامات خود رسانده و از اینا مشوره میگیره مقامات امریکایی. نظر آقای راکا میگیریم که افغانا در این مرحله سرنوشت ساز چی کنند، با کدام کاندید در امریکا رای بدن، برداشتشان از مذاکره صلح یا پیس تاک پروسس امروی طالبان چیز. با اجازه شما یا هو گفته میخوایم پروگرام خود شروع کنیم. آیا شما عرصه طرفدار دونالد ترامپ هستین و میخواین برای دونالد ترامپ رای بدین؟
We are all 3 Donald Trump supporters. I did not know that the Afghan people were so strong for Donald Trump until I met Sabir over here, and we were talking casually one day, and we came up with the idea of, well, let's take a look at the Afghan people and see how supportive they are. The issue right now is that Donald Trump does not look like he's going to win. I'm just going to say that as a matter of fact. That's when, Brad and I and Sabir came up with the ideas. Let's start taking a look at the populations that don't vote, but that really do support Donald Trump, because he's a strong leader. He's got a good sense for business. He's got a good sense for diplomats. He does it a little bit differently than most people, but he actually gets out there and makes some good decisions and keeps his promises. It's going to be an uphill battle for Trump. I'm not necessarily thinking that he's going to win, But what is going to help him win is bringing the communities of the United States into the voting process. Afghan Americans, for example, Latin Americans, for example, Nigerian Americans, for example, Sierra Leoneans, for example. So we are hitting each of these populations, and we're finding out that they do support Trump. They just don't go out and vote. So this is very important for this process. Hopefully with the Afghan Americans that are out there that can vote, hopefully they will get this message and go out there and vote for Trump, and maybe Trump will win. But it's going to be a very, very difficult process.
Thank you very much. Are you able to answer this question?
Yeah, sure. Well, I support Donald Trump because basically what he's done over the last 3.5 years. I was not a Donald Trump supporter when he ran the first time. I was not. I didn't vote for him. But what I saw was a man who started delivering on his promises, and it's the first time in my life, adult life, where I've seen a businessman go into office with the mentality of, not of a bureaucrat, which is how to maintain the systems and how to maintain the processes so that the system perpetuates itself. Instead, he was interested in getting results out of the system for the citizens. At least that's what I've seen. And the economy was just booming. I mean, no one can argue that we went from, anemia from when Bush got out of office and Obama came in. It was a very anemic recovery. And then Trump comes in, and all of a sudden it's like a lightning bolt. I mean, all of a sudden the economy was flying, and everybody was working, and wages were going up, and the lowest unemployment in the history of when they've been, gauging unemployment. So I would say the economy is very important, but also when it comes to international relations, we projected a lot of weakness during the Obama administration. It was a very, very weak, milk toast, we call it, way to approach stuff. Trump has a very direct way, and he doesn't seem like he wants to waste life or money or time or energy in things that don't work. So what I believe is a second administration, I do believe Trump's going to win. I'll have to respectfully disagree with Jerry. I think it's going to be 1968 all over again. I think it's going to be a humongous margin. I think this people like me, which are working class folks, blue collar folks who come out of rural Georgia and places like that, who are traditionally Democratic supporters because of the way the Democratic Party used to be when we were growing up, but has shifted very far left. It's very, very difficult to gauge where that party's going. But I know that the people that I don't like, the people that I would like to see have their hands off the levers of power, get very angry at Donald Trump every day. And so if he's making them very angry, he must be doing something right. So I'm very confident he's going to win again. And I think the second term will be better than the first, because a lot of people that were reluctant to work with him in the first administration in the Republican Party will then come in and they'll have to come and work in, because he's going to have to go next time. So I think we're going to see a big turnaround in support across the board, and I think the economy is going to be the leading voting factor. So I think he's going to win pretty big, but that's the reason I'm going to vote for him.
Thank you. Have you been in Afghanistan?
No comment.
No problem. Okay.
I served in support networks over there.
Good.
Definitely, it's an interesting region. It's very difficult to understand for most Americans. It depends on what part of Afghanistan you're in, the story you get, about it. But it's a great place. We have a good anywhere we go where we shed blood, we have a kinship and honor. So Afghanistan will always be part of America now, is the way I look at it, because we've shed blood for you. We've been there.
The U.S. has a big responsibility nowadays.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Mr. Rao.
The best thing, I'm voting for that person that can help Afghanistan and Afghanistan people. مردم افغانستان از افغانستان فرار نکنه. ما بخاطر کلکایی که دست دادیم ما میبخشمشانه، ما هم صلح میکنم. اگر
فکر میکنین که طالبان چنج کنن عقیدهشان؟ Do you think the Taliban bring change on their opinion?
مسئله شکنجه دادن وجودم از طریق طالبان و قطع کردن انگشتانم نیست، اما ما به نفع مردم افغانستان و به نفع کشور خود کار میکنم و به او کسی رای میدم که مدافع افغانستان و به نفع افغانستان.
تشکر. به نظر شما سیاست جو بایدن و دونالد ترامپ از هم چه تفاوت داره؟
Brad and I were talking about this earlier today. Joe Biden's plan is just completely withdraw from Afghanistan and just turn his head this way and focus on other things. If the Taliban were to abuse the Afghani people, he would not turn his head back towards the Afghani people and provide any support. That's different than Trump. Trump wants peace over there between the Taliban and the Afghan people. If peace doesn't happen and the Taliban abuse the Afghan people, Trump will return with U.S. forces. That's the big difference. So if you're with Biden, he's just going to forget about Afghanistan. He doesn't have a stake there. He doesn't know the culture. He doesn't understand what Brad was talking about earlier in terms of we shed blood, so you guys are our brothers and sisters. And Trump knows we have shed blood. And if the Taliban abuse the people of Afghanistan, the U.S. forces will be back. That's my opinion.
Thank you very much. بیننده‌های عزیز، ما در شرایط هستیم که مسئله زنهای افغانستان در اولویت قرار داره. شما این کتاب میبینین که صدای خشمالود سر از مجده جمالزاده است که یکی از نویسنده‌های بسیار معروف کشور کانادا این کتاب نوشته کرده و در دل از این کتاب یک عالم جنجال است. بسیار گپا قصه هایی است که از زنهای افغانستان است و در این شرایط اساس سنسیتیو تایم به اصطلاح موضوع زنای افغانستان women issue in Afghanistan is a big. گلاس کافی مرا که میبینین هم یک زن به نام مرغنای سعید که برای زنهای افغانستان کار میکنن. دستاوردهای زنهای افغانستان هم امروز از یا قسمت میکنیم که بالاخره آینده زنهای افغانستان چی میشه. چرا میگه زن است که تاریخ جهان میسازد، شهکار شگفت جاودان میسازد، با دانش خود رود به سوی افلاک، دنیای دیگر به کاروان میسازد. آیا با آمدن طالبان موقعیت زنان افغانستان چی میشه؟ به نظر شما سیاست های جو بایدن چه تفاوت داره با سیاست های آقای ترامپ در مورد قضایای افغانستان؟
Gary already said Biden's plan is to basically pull almost all the troops out and to do the direct talks with the Taliban to try to end the fighting, which I think that Trump is.
و نظر من این است که با کسی رای بتین که اقتصاد افغانستان خوب کنن. اگر شکمای شما سیر باشه، شکم مردم افغانستان سیر بود، امنیت هم میآید. فعلا شکما گشنه است، همگی پریشان است.
You got to remember that he's had an influx and an outflux of advisors. He's had several national security advisors, several chiefs of staff. So what happens is I think he's gotten probably some confusing advice during his first administration about how to deal with the problems in Afghanistan. So I see a second Trump term being more along the lines of forcing the right people to the table. And I just don't think that as long as there's shooting going on, that we should be sitting at the table. I always believe that before there should be peace talks, there should be genuine ceasefires throughout the entire country. So I think at first Trump's will take a stronger stand on that to force ceasefires like true to stop the fighting before anyone can be accepted at the peace table. I just see Biden's policy as basically abandoning Afghanistan, pulling out, and traditionally that's happened in a couple of places before. I bring up Vietnam, for instance, and it's just not, it's not an honorable way after we say shedding blood there and fighting as we have for almost 20 years there. It's not an honorable way to leave the war, is to just cut and run. So I would say at least Trump's not going to cut and run, and hopefully we'll get better advice in the second administration.
Thank you so much. خب آقای ناصری، نظر شما در این رابطه چی است؟ سیاست دو سیاستمدار برای افغانستان چه تفاوت داره از هم دیگه؟
به نظر من سیاست آقای ترامپ، جو بایدن هر نظر دارن بین خود، سیاست‌های گوناگون دارن، جریانات مختلف وجود داره در امریکا. اما می‌خوایم که تو بگویم که آقای دونالد ترامپ کوشش میکنه که به نفع افغانستان صحبت بکنه و اگر طالبان این تعهد که بین افغانستان و امریکا است اگر پیش کنن او تعهد، فکر کنم که مانند 2001 طالبان را سرنگون خواهد کرد که اینجا ما یک چانس داریم. اما به نظر من آقای جو بایدن او کار کرده نخواهد بکنه، او کار کرده نمیتونه. اما گمان میره که بخاطر نفع مردم افغانستان آقای ترامپ کوشش زیاد بکنه و صدای مردم افغانستان بشنوه که همین تیم انتخاباتیش همیشه گفته که آقای ترامپ در دوره دوم به صدای مردم افغانستان گوش میده، به درد مردم افغانستان گوش میده، نه به 5 نفره که حکومت گرو گرفتن.
چرا امریکاییان افغان تبار برای دونالد ترامپ باید ووت یا رای بدن؟
So for the people here, a second Trump term would mean continued economic prosperity, earning more money, being able to take care of your families, being able to get jobs, which is important, low unemployment, low taxes, which is, certainly key. The other reason for it, the Afghan Americans, is they still care about what's going on in Afghanistan. And even though Donald Trump is trying to bring the Taliban and the Afghan government together in a peace process, he's still aware that that could fall apart. And if it does fall apart, and as I said earlier, the Taliban abuse the Afghan people, then I think you'll see U.S. forces return, which would bring, again, stability, at least for another period of time to Afghanistan. It would certainly give the Afghan Americans a comfort that at least we're trying to bring peace and stability to the people of their nation.
Thank you. Mr. Brett, what's your opinion? چرا باید مردم افغانستان به جای جو بایدن از دونالد ترامپ حمایت کنه؟ عقیده شما چی است؟
Well, I think the Afghan people fit more with the Republican Party as far as their cultural values. So I think Afghan people are conservative people, also very proud but very hospitable. And so, if you're looking at it, I mean, Donald Trump's not a very hospitable person sometimes, but that's New York City. But the reality is that if you look at the values that I think, people, when you're from outside looking at America, what do you see? You see a land of opportunity. And so I think that if you look at who offers the most opportunity, both for individual liberty and personal freedom under our Constitution, economic mobility as well as education, as well as, it would be nice if we had a good, permanent, longer-lasting peace in the entire region, not just in Afghanistan. And so if you want to move forward towards that, then your vote needs to go to Trump. If you want to return to the failed policies of past administrations, well, place your vote with one of them that's running, the other guy, because both of them represent failed policies from the past administration. So I see, if you want to see things prosper in Afghanistan and grow, and you want to see the Afghan community here in America have more freedom and more economic liberty, then they need to stick with Donald Trump.
Thank you very much. آقای ناصری، نظر شما چیست؟ چرا آمریکایی‌های افغان تبار به جای بایدن که اکثریت در افغانستان بایدن تایید میکنن از آقای ترامپ حمایت کنن؟ چون خودت کسی هستی که در مقامات بلندپایه امریکا ما همیشه دیدیمت.
یک نظر دارم و یک پیشنهاد دارم. پیشنهادم این است که من نمیتونم گفته افغانا را که برین به کی رای بدین. I'm not forcing Afghan Americans to go vote for who or for this, but I'm asking Afghan Americans to vote for the right person who can make Afghanistan great and keep great. Number two,
can you answer in Farsi please?
Yes. و میتونیم تو گفت که ما شخصا خودم افغانا را فورس یا فشار نمیتم که با کی رای بدین. با کسی رای بدین که اقتصاد افغانستان با اون کشور با اون شخص ربط داشته باشه، وصل شده باشه. اگر اقتصاد امریکا خوب باشه، به نظر من اقتصاد افغانستان هم خوب خواهد بود. لحاظا اگر امریکا راحت بود، افغانستان هم. افغانستان معاون امریکا است و در این معاونیت اگر امریکا پولدار بود، اقتصادش خوب بود، افغانستان هم اقتصادش خوب خواهد بود. اگر اقتصاد امریکا خراب بود، اقتصاد افغانستان هم خراب میشه. پس لحاظا من میتونم گفته که به کسی رای بدین که شما راحت هستین و نظر من این است که به کسی رای بدین که اقتصاد افغانستان خوب کنن. اگر شکمای شما سیر باشه، شکم مردم افغانستان سیر بود، امنیت هم میآید. فعلا شکما گشنه است، همگی پریشان است.
من سوالات دیگه هم داریم در خصوص مسائل افغانستان، مخصوصا زنهای افغانستان که ما پیشتر کتاب مجد جان جمالزاده، یکی از هنرمندان نامدار افغانستان نسل جوان میخواهیم با شما قسمت کنم. با شما سوالات دیگه هم خواهد داشتیم. میریم به سوال چهارم. We go to fourth question. به نظر شما میروند مذاکرات صلح را که آقای ترامپ در نظر گرفته، فکر میکنین که موفق خواهد بود در کوتاه مدت و دراز مدت، برای از اینکه مردم افغانستان تجارب بسیار نگاتیو یا منفی از طالبان دارند.
Well, obviously, it has not. The peace process between the Taliban and the Afghan government has not been successful, and the Afghan people has not been successful. When I left in 2004, I was in the military from 2002 to 2004, and when I left, people that I had captured were back out there, and I'd have to recapture them. And one thing that people, in the United States and the world don't understand is Taliban is a way of life. It's almost like a political party here that's hard to get people to change. And there's a lot of them out there. So you're actually asking people to change their souls when you're asking for them to relinquish and get into a peace environment. And that's the one thing that I discovered, and Brad brought this up earlier, that, it's a very complex environment. No, it has not been successful. Will it be successful? Under a Trump administration, it has a chance of success. Let me just say that. He will insert himself into the process because, as Brad said, we've shed blood over there, and we are brothers and sisters. And he won't turn his back on it. So at least there's that opportunity for peace. I don't know that there will be. I don't think anybody here can predict what the future has in terms of peace talks with the Taliban.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sabir, what's your opinion about the new policy?
As I stated before, I think Trump has gotten some bad advice from what I would consider temporary advisors. I don't believe there's a complete disarmament process. There must be a demilitarization of all of the militias, and I just don't think they'll ever agree to that. I don't think they'll ever stand down their militaries, their militias. And so I don't think Trump's policy, I believe opening up the talks with the Taliban was something he had to do, right? It was a historic step. It had to happen. There's nothing wrong with talking to somebody, negotiate, but it must be from a position of strength, and it must be from my point of view, the Americans must have peace with honor, as they said. There must be some guarantees, and there must be checks and balances. I would say overall the Trumps produced some pretty confusing statements, but again, that's also Trump's negotiation style. Sometimes he'll send surrogates out to say one thing, and then he'll pit other surrogates against them publicly or criticize the policy. That is to create space for him to have a deal made. That, I believe, is the way he looks at that. Unfortunately, the Taliban are not the Chinese negotiating trade tariffs. These guys, this is a blood feud. It's going to be to the very end, and I don't believe that they'll ever honestly participate in any peace process. It'll be as soon as the troops are out that keep the peace, as quickly as they can, they'll restart the conflict. And that's my personal belief and opinion. So I believe Trump needs to take a much stronger hand, and they have to be disarmed. And so I'm not a big fan of direct talks with the Taliban. I believe they've been a failure so far. So I would give him, I would say he needs to have a much stronger hand on that. So I'm not a big supporter of that policy.
Well, thank you very much. از میمان ما پرسان میکنیم که اینا تجربه بسیار کافی داره. انگشتای خود از دست داده، به اصطلاح شکنجه شدن و طبعا خاطرات بد دارن. من نمیفهم که احساسشان در این رابطه، در این موقع اساسه که طالبان دوباره با متجارب تلخ میآیند به افغانستان. آقای ناصری، سیاست نوی که آقای ترامپ در مورد افغانستان در نظر گرفته که او عبارت از پیس تاک یا مذاکره صلح با طالبان است که همین فعلا در دوحه در قطر جریان داره. شما چی فکر میکنین؟ آیا سیاست خوب است؟ آیا شما هنوز میخواین از آقای ترامپ حمایت کنین و مردم تشویق کنین، یا همونطور که پیشتر گفتین من نمیخوایم که فورس یا فشار بیارم؟ چه نظر دارین برای اینکه شما وجودتان از دست دادین، دستایتان انگشتایتان از دست؟
شکنجه دادن وجود من مهم نیست. من تحمل درد دارم و خواهم داشت. اما مسئله مردم افغانستان است. اگر شما فکر میکنین که ما به آقای دونالد ترامپ رای میتم، مستقیما رای میتم و یک نفر سپورت میکنم، اشتباه فکر میکنم. ما به کس رای میتم که بازم تکرار میکنم که غم مردم افغانستان، درد مردم افغانستان احساس بکنه. تمام جواب آقای مستر براد گفت که گپ دل مرا گفت. در سال 2002 الی 2004 آقای جری در افغانستان بود، طالب گرفت، پس حکومت افغانستان رها میکرد که خودش می موضوع را من همیشه یاد میکردم. حکومت امریکایی میگرفت بر دولت افغانستان، طالبان را تسلیم میکرد، بعدا حکومت افغانستان پس دوباره رهایش میکرد. حکومت
دولت آقای غنی منظورتان است؟
آقای کرزی وقت بود.
آقای
مسئله آقای کرزی در سال 2002 الی 2004 حکومت موقت بود. همچنان ما طرفدار صحبت‌های آقای براد هستم که گفت من طرفدار صلح و نیگوشیت یا تعهدی که با طالبان شده طرفداری نمیکنم. واقعا ما همچنان
شما اگه سر خود فوکس کنین که مشکلات را دیدین، حالا اگر یا اینا در راستن میگه لحظه دیدار نزدیک است، باز میلرزه دلم دستم.
اگر طالبان بیایه و به چهره نو بیایه، خانم ها را غرض نگیره، شکنجه نکنن، مردان آزاد بانند که آزاد تعلیم بیابه، کاربار اقتصاد ما را ضربه نزنن و جوانان ما را دوباره مسافر نسازن، مردم افغانستان از افغانستان فرار نکنه، ما به خاطر کلکایی که دست دادیم ما میبخشمشانه، ما هم صلح میکنم. اگر
فکر میکنین که طالبان چنج کنن عقیدهشان؟ Do you think the Taliban bring change on their opinion?
The Taliban will not change their opinion at all. I'm not agree with that because Taliban, they are beast, they are animal. If the Taliban want to change their ideas, their policy because of people of Afghanistan, because of United States, I can say welcome. But I don't believe it's a big mistake of the temporary advisor of Mr. Donald Trump. As Mr. Brad said, I'm not agree with that. I'm 100% not agree with
Okay,
peace.
thank you very much. خب عزیزا، تاریخ حکومتداری طالبان هم شما به یاد دارین، مخصوصا برای بانوان افغانستان بسیار دردآور بود. با توجه به گذشته شکارهای طالبان، دوباره آقای ترامپ مذاکرات صلح را راه اندازی کرده و ای که چقدر افغانا خوشبین است فعلا یا نیست. طبعا افغانا بدبین هستند و ای که چی جواب آقای ترامپ خواد داشت، ایرام از آقای جری پرسان میکنیم. نگفتنمونه که جری در افغانستان بوده، یه از بین افغانستان تجارب بسیار کافی از افغانستان داره. بیاین کمی سوال از آقای جری پرسان کنیم. امیال مذاکرات صلح در دوی قطر جریان داره. یکی طالبان هنوز به خشونتشان ادامه میتن.
You know, during the first administration, Trump had an obligation to try to bring peace, to try to bring the Taliban together with the people and the government of Afghanistan. And I think Brad brought that up. And he tried it. He withdrew troops, tried to bring them together, and it didn't happen. The fighting continued. Sabir knows the Taliban probably does not intend to leave anyway. But it's Trump's obligation as the President of the United States to at least make that attempt. I think he's going to try again. And like I said earlier, if the Taliban abuse the Afghans, I think you will see U.S. forces there. I'll give you just one example. During the previous administration, ISIS took over the Middle East, right? And they did whatever they wanted to do, whenever they wanted to do. I don't think it's going to be an ISIS type of a situation, but I think you'll see accelerated, hands-on diplomatic and military activity from the United States, and I think you'll build a coalition to help stabilize Afghanistan. And of course, you know, and I don't think anyone here believes that the Taliban is going away, but to at least get it to a stable state where people feel safe in their own country.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brad, what do you think?
Well, Afghan Americans, I mean, they should have every reason to be, you know, skeptical of the process, especially when they're dealing directly with the Taliban. The Taliban has been so completely unreasonable. One of the things we haven't mentioned tonight was the use of religion and the manipulation of the Afghan people and the creation of the Taliban. Mm-hmm. So I think there'll have to be some separation of the idea that the Taliban is a religious organization or that their behavior is in any way representative of Islam in an appropriate sense, an appropriate version or vision or idea of how it should be exercised in the world. So first, I believe that what Trump must do to reassure Afghan Americans is he must let them know that he is not going to abandon them. He is not going to pull out. We will back them up. But that there has to be an end to the war. I mean, Afghanistan has been fighting since 1979. I mean, when will the fighting end? When will there be a generation that grows up without war in Afghanistan? That's the question, is what do you believe in the future? So what Trump needs to convey to the Afghan people is a clear and concise and very simple policy of only dealing with folks that want peace, who are willing to put their arms down in a ceasefire before. I don't think the Taliban will ever agree to that, and so therefore they won't be invited to the table. But to reassure Afghan Americans, he absolutely has to make sure that we know we're not going to leave the good men like Sabir that are still there and the good ladies like yourself there to the brutality of these groups to force people to adhere to their policies. So I hope that Trump will come out with a pretty clear and concise statement to reassure the Afghans that, you know, no matter what, we're not going to pull out and leave you in the hands of the Taliban.
با وجودی که شما گفتین من نه خود زیر فشار قرار میتم که با آقای ترامپ رای بدم یا با بایدن، هر چیزی که به خیر ملت افغانستان باشه. از دید شما جواب آقای ترامپ برای مردم افغانستان که از طالبان دل خوش ندارن چی خواهد بود؟ چی پاسخ بر اونایی که دل پردرد دارن مثل شما؟
ما در مورد تعهد طالبان با حکومت امریکا دخالت نمی کنم. نظر شخصی خودم ترجیح باید بدم که نظر شخصی می است که طالبان میکروب انسانی تروریست و وحشی در افغانستان است.
اگر قرار باشه قدرت بگیره در اون صورت هم امی جمله را برشون
خدا نکنه که قدرت بگیره، اما فیصدی کمه که در قدرت اونا دخیل شوند شاید 20% یا 15% باشه. تمام قدرت افغانستان
اما اونا قبول ندارن 20%.
اگر قبول نکنن باز یک پالیسی دیگر شاید حکومت امریکا و تیم متحد افغانستان که یک سمت دیگه خواهد رفت، مردم دیگه باید شاید تصمیم بگیره. مردم افغانستان جنگجو نیستن، صلح‌خواه هستن، اما اگر قهرشان بیایه از اولاد خودم تیر میشن، خاک خدا نجات میدن.
یعنی شما باورمند نیستین که طالبان به دولت افغانستان بپیونده؟
طالبان درخواستای گوناگون داره، یعنی میگن که باید مشاورین حکومت افغانستان باید طالب باشه، چند وزارت دست طالبا باشد، نام تیم ما یعنی نام افغانستان تغییر بیابه. ممکن نیست که حکومت افغانستان به خواست از اونا هم قبول بکنه خواست طالبا را، اما شاید بعض خواستایی که مردم افغانستان داره حکومت افغانستان شاید قبول بکنه. اما جواب سوال شما این باشه که بزرگترین مشکل در حکومت امریکا امین بود که مشاورین درست حکومت امریکا نداشت. آقای دونالد ترامپ در امریکا که فعلا
اونایی که برای افغانستان کار میکنه؟
بله، هدفم از حکومت امریکا قبلا مشاورین درست نداشت، مشاورین افغانستان. یعنی
یا منظورتان آقای خلیلزاد است؟
من نامشان نمیگیرم، اما کسی که به حکومت امریکا مشوره میدن درست مشوره ندادن. اما همه میگم که مردم افغانستان خواستش با طالبان صلح کردن نیست. اکثریت مردم افغانستان از طالبان نفرت داره و با صلح اونا آماده نیستن. با طالبان صلح مردم افغانستان اکثریتشان نمیکنن. اما این که حکومت امریکا یا حکومت افغانستان کوشش میکنه یا جهان کوشش میکنه، او خطش علایده است، من مداخله نمیکنم. به نمایندگی از فامیل خود یا مردم خود یا مردم افغانستان صحبت میکنم اینجا. اما قدر میگم که اگر امریکا میخواد با طالبان صلح بکنه، باید به درد مردم افغانستان، به صدای مردم افغانستان اول گوش بده.
به نهایت تشکر. Let me ask him one more question. آقای ناصری عزیز، یکی از مسائل عمده در افغانستان حضور تعداد کثیری از مهاجرین افغانستان در کشورهای خارج است. به نظر خودت آیا امکان از این است که طالبان با دولت افغانستان بپیونده، یک دولت واحد تشکیل بده و اینا کوشش کنند که مهاجرینی که سرگردان آواره در کشورهای بیگانه هستند بتونن چانس بگیرن که به افغانستان بیاید؟
تشکر، بهترین سوال بود، اما جوابش بسیار کوتاه. اگر طالبان در حکومت افغانستان سهم داشته باشه، مهاجرین افغانستان در جهان، در امریکا، اروپا دوباره به افغانستان نمیرن. رفت آمد مهاجرین مردم افغانستان در افغانستان قطع خواهد شد. چون ما به حیث مهاجر در حکومت امریکا یا آسیا یا اروپا هر جایی که باشیم بالای رفتار و کردار و عادتهای طالبان، رژیم طالبان باور نداره.
شما دیدین که هفته پیش دونالد ترامپ رئیس جمهوری ایالات متحده آمریکا به کووید 19 یا کرونا مصاب شده بودن. با توجه به اینکه این مسئله را گذاشتن یا نگذاشتن ماسک یک چیز عادی میگرفتن و امروز ما سوشال دیستنس یا فاصله اجتماعی را گرچه در نظر گرفتیم، من نمیفهم که اینا عقیده داره. یعنی چه فکر میکنین که آقای ترامپ که هفته پیش با کرونا مصاب شده بود تاثیر بر انتخابات و دیبیتای دیگهش با جو بایدن داره؟
Well, the truth of the matter is it's already had an impact, a negative impact on Trump. If you take a look at his ratings in terms of handling COVID-19, they went down. So 60% of the people think that he didn't handle it well. 30% of the people think that he did. So it has had an impact. The primary reason for that is not that he got COVID, because he's out there working every day for Americans, including Afghan Americans. So he has to be in meetings. He has to be engaged with people. And Brad brought up something earlier that most of the people that are voting for Trump are people that are day-to-day workers, and they understand the need to have to work to earn a living. So they understand that Trump has to, continue on his job. So he got COVID. I think that's going to pass over time if he stays healthy, and they will remember him as recovering from COVID instead of getting COVID. So it could have a good turnaround. One of the most important things, though, is that people, like the Afghan Americans and the other communities out there that have similar values, we have family values. We believe in economic prosperity for our families. We believe in, the freedom to worship the way we want to worship. And those are key Republican core conservative values. And, we're not picking a president because he got COVID or didn't get COVID. We're picking a president because he believes in the same things we believe in, which is family, religion, earning your economic prosperity, being able to educate your children the way you want to educate them, those sort of things. So as long as we focus on those things, then the American people will pick the right candidate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brett, what do you think?
I do think it'll have an impact on the election, him catching COVID. I mean, obviously, anything that disrupts the campaign schedule, the events and showing up and building support is a bad thing. However, if he bounces back quickly, in other words, if this is not something, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, got COVID-19 and he was hospitalized and was injured from it. He still has not recovered from it fully. You look at Donald Trump, he's been a healthy guy his whole life. He doesn't drink, he has no vices. He's never been seriously ill. He doesn't have any underlying illnesses that would cause him to be vulnerable. So there's no reason to think that he's not going to bounce back. But I do think if he bounces back quickly and fully and gets back on the campaign trail at the pace and speed he's been, that it will help him because he'll look like a Superman. It'll be like, look, guys, it's like I told you, we just need to get through this. We can get through it. I got it. I got through it. I'm an older guy. I got through it. You can too. The major impact COVID's had overall has been economic. It's been, so that would say that the most damage the virus has done to his campaign was not him catching it personally, but was destroying an economy that was roaring. I mean, he was roaring into, a second term on a good economy. So COVID pretty much brought the economy to a standstill. And so with the 30% decrease in activity, I think that was the major damage. But him getting it, I don't think it affected him but for the short bump. So apparently as soon as he gets back on the campaign trail, assuming that things, it doesn't get worse, which we all hope and pray that it doesn't, I think he'll be back on the campaign trail, and I think we'll see him getting a bump out of it. I think people will actually like the fact that he caught it and beat it and is back out there doing his thing. I think it'll end up being a good thing for him.
Thank you. آقای ناصری، طوری که برات گفت مقایسه کردن با بوریس جانسون صدر اعظم انگلستان، گفتن وقت زیاده میگیره. آقای بوریس جانسون هنوزم ریکاور یا خوب نشده 100%. از دید خودت مصاب شدن آقای ترامپ در انتخابات پیشرو تاثیر خواهد داشت؟
تشکر. بله تاثیر داره، اما این یک بهانه گفته نمیشه. ما مسلمان هستیم و از افغانستان هستیم. همیشه بر تمام انسان ها دعا میکنیم که هر کسی که کووید 19 داره خداوند شفا بدهش و جور شود. اما مردم افغانستان افتخار میکنم که در افغانستان کووید 19 آمد، این مرض کشنده آمد و مردم افغانستان تا به حال آزادانه کار میکنه و بالای ما مردم افغانستان کار نکرده. ما بسیار خوشبین هستم از
دیگه با این دو رفیقت میتونی قسمت کنی که بگوی ما مسلمان هستیم کووید doesn't work.
Actually, I can say that COVID-19 came to Afghanistan and didn't work. Majority people,
because we are Muslim,
they become healthy. No, it's not like we are Muslim, but there's a lot of virus in Afghanistan. We had the tuberculosis, we had different viruses in Afghanistan, but the good thing is Afghanistan people, they had lot of energy, vitamin, they're working, running, and I know they're not worried about COVID-19, but they're worried about COVID-17, which is that's Taliban. So we are worried about COVID-17, which is Taliban or the virus too.